One more preseason game to go, and there's some linebackers that need to show up or they'll get a pink slip. I'll tell you all about it today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is flat out the absolute truth that this is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast each and every day. Make sure you tap into that location, whether you watch or listen, and we'll be right there. We just don't want you to miss an episode like the one today. First and foremost, I've been a credentialed member of the media for 2 decades. And I'm proud to say that I think I have my finger on the pulse of this team good enough to give you information as we head into the regular season. The Jaguars will be traveling today on their way to Miami for joint practices prior to the last preseason game of the season. And there's some jobs at stake. We're going to tell you all about that here today. Thank you for the everydayers for joining us and spending your half hour or so with us each and every day. We do not take that for granted. I cherish the fact that you spend your valuable time here. And if you're new, I'm going to give you a reason to come back. Hopefully you'll like what you hear. All right, we're going to end the show talking about the offense. We're going to name some bubble guys on the offense, people that need to show up and play well for Tony Boselli and crew to be impressed. In the middle, we'll talk about DBs trying to show up for a spot. But we're going to start the show talking about a very important group, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars linebackers. I asked the Jaguars linebackers coach during a bit of when we had our sit down earlier this year. Tim Lukabu, I asked him, was there any added pressure on him because he knows where Anthony Campanile is right now as the coordinator, but Anthony Campanile by trade was a linebackers coach. So I kind of asked him, does it put any pressure on him? He said, no, because I know exactly where he is because Tim had been a head coach and a coordinator where he had been a coordinator before. And he says, no, I know exactly where he is. When that's your position by trade, there's some things that that you should expect. So the addition of both of those guys really was supposed to not only help the whole defense, but to get the absolute best out of the linebacker core. So we'll start there today. And honestly, we all know what this team has in Foyesade Oluokun. As I'm standing here with my roster right now, I'll look down occasionally, so pardon me, but we all understand what we have with Foyesade Oluokun. And, I've had people around the league tell me about Foy. Well, all of those are stats. Everything is stats driven. You know what stats represent sometimes? The fact that you have the opportunity to make a play and you always make it. Doesn't matter that the Jaguars defense hasn't been great the last couple of years. What does matter was when the dude has a chance to make plays, he makes them. You're either going to make them or you're not. And you can't tell me that he hasn't made plays. I don't care who you are. You can say, well, the numbers bear out that he had all those opportunities because maybe other people weren't that good. And both things can be true at the same time. But at least he was a dude that has had a chance to make some plays, and he made those plays. So I think they're in a good situation with that. Also, if you ever talk to him, he's a very, very good leader. And coaches always want guys that can help coach their guys because when coaches aren't around, you still need a presence in that room. And I think Foy Oluokun is a very, very good example of that. A dude that even told us, look, they're always trying to replace me and everybody else. So somebody that has that little bit of a chip on their shoulder that goes about the business of keeping the business the main thing. It's always going to be a plus in my eyes. So I think they're fine in that respect. In fact, I hope he's around for a couple of more years because too many times we've had guys like Puzlesny and even Telvin Smith. We've had guys that we considered leaders, and then we only had them for a short period of time. I like the fact that Foy is in his 8th year, but still treats this thing like he's in his 2nd year. I think Ventrell Miller is a shoo-in for this team. He's going to make it too. Ventrell Miller is lights out, man. He plays with the navigation system in his mind. He's the smallest of the group, about 6 feet, 232 pounds. And remember, 6 feet 232, when I start talking about somebody else here shortly that I think is on the bubble for this team. But I think Ventrell definitely is worth keeping around for development. Devin Lloyd is another dude that I think is a shoe-in to make this team. Obviously, maybe the most talented of the bunch, looks the part. I think this is the year where you try to hope that those two coaches that I mentioned, as well as the overall scheme, really allows Devin Lloyd to come into his own and be who he's supposed to be. Right now, when he got drafted, I was hoping that he wouldn't be another Miles Jack, which is a guy that isn't really a quote unquote jack of all. He's a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? And that's kind of where Miles kind of bounced around, where he had all of this talent, but you didn't really know how to use him, or either that or he didn't know how to be used. Either way, Devin Lloyd is headed down that same territory. They weren't picked too far apart. Devin was a late first round pick. Miles was a early second round pick, but those are the things you have to look out for, man. Are guys going to ever totally live up to their potential? Don't know. We'll have to see. But Devin Lloyd has this year to do it because they did not pick up his fifth-year option. So those are the top three. Left are Chad Muma, Jack Kaiser. Jack Kaiser is going to make the team also. He's a fourth-round pick this year. And I know everybody falls in love with draft picks, but I don't think I'm saying this because of that. I think I'm saying this because we've seen the way he moves, the way he gets around in practice. Jack Kaiser is going to be fine, man, and he's going to be a real, real good piece. It kind of reminds me of when Sanborn was picked by the Bears a couple of years ago. I'm like, that's a highly productive dude that's played a lot in college. Came right in here and didn't play like a rookie at all. I'm not telling you he's going to ever be great or ever be one of the frontline starters, but I do think that he'll be a rotational player for at least 6 to 8 years in the National Football League, and that's good enough for me. So that's 4 guys that I think are shoe-ins. Now, how many do they keep? I think they keep 6, right? Yasir Abdullah, in my opinion, has made this team. Right now, he's listed on the depth chart as the starting Sam linebacker, and he also gives you pass rush. He comes down the line. He's a sure tackler in the open field. There's your 5th guy. Do they keep 6? That's the question. That's where Chad Muma comes in. I don't think he's done a whole bunch, but he has been around in the league, and he is on the last year of his deal. I would put him on the bubble. I would definitely put him on the bubble because I haven't seen enough from him. Everything I think about Muma is just, yeah, he's all right, but he hasn't shown anything. So when you have a dude in his 4th year that hasn't shown you a reason to keep him or that he'll ever really turn into anything more than he is, you got to be careful with that, because the dude that played for the Eagles, Zach Bond, was just like that, and he ended up going up there being player of the year. So maybe a scheme switch will help him, just like Zach Bond got a scheme switch along with a team switch. But at this point, I would say don't know. Depends what they want to keep and how they want their room to look, because that's when you get to these other guys. You get to Dennis Gardeck, right? 6 feet, 232 pounds. Same size as Ventrell Miller, but plays it a little bit differently. He's on the PUP list. He really, at the point that I had this, he was on the PUP list, but he hadn't really done a lot. But they have a history of knowing what these guys can do based on, and this is what I always tell you, they have a book on them based on what they've seen them do in the past and against teams in the NFC West, particularly the Rams. When they played them, he flashed and he looked good. So those are the things that people remember. But it's what have you done for me lately? So it'll come down to, in my opinion, Dennis Gardeck, Jalen McLeod, the rookie, and Chad Muma. Now, McLeod, all of them, I guess, can be hitting on the practice squad, but how can you really hide guys like Gardeck that has experience and Chad Muma, who there might be somebody out there that believes that they can be the one that impacts him enough to get the potential out of him? I think McLeod is most likely to be the one that you can hide on the practice squad. So maybe that leads you to keep another dude. But this game's going to tell the truth, man. Those backups are going to have a big-time shot to really, really impress these coaches. We're going to talk about the defensive backs. Take a look at those guys. And this is a little more complex, but we're going to make sure we get to it here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and my fellows on the Playmakers and Showtime League on Yahoo, we're playing for the 18th straight year, and you should too. If it's your 50th year playing, making it your millionth time doing these drafts. All right, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, and it's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's just one team left standing. With seasons being around the corner, one more week, now it's time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/locked-on. All right, we're doing a little bit of a bubble show here. The team is preparing to travel down to Miami for workouts. This is one of those trips, too, that I had got in touch with the Jags PR. I was actually going to go to Miami for a few days. Obviously, I'm not going, so I'll be here with you guys. But I was going to go down there and watch practice and kind of report to you all what I saw. Wasn't able to make it a little bit of a trip for business reasons, but I'm going to go through these defensive backs. I think this is a big deal. And I think they'll also be challenged a lot, too, in these workouts, and you're going to see a lot. This is a situation where I believe if there are guys that are on the bubble, these workouts with the challenges that the receiving core gives you in Miami, and they do give you a challenge for sure. This, in my opinion, is going to be something that may be just as much important as those game reps that you'll see in this final preseason game. So let me go through the guys that I believe are definitive in terms of making this roster this year. Jordan Lewis, you bet your bottom dollar. That's easy. Tyson Campbell, you bet your bottom dollar. That's easy. Travis Hunter's a wild card. He's going to make the team, obviously, right? But he's one of those dudes that because he has two positions, he's going to be what I call a roster spot saver. That is like having a dude that is a really good move tight end who kind of is built like a wide receiver. He kind of gives you both, right? Travis is going to be a wide receiver in the DB, so he's going to be that dude that actually saves you a roster spot. Whether it's yet to be determined whether that's at wide receiver, defensive back, or because of his presence at both, maybe it's the third position. We'll have to see. But I do believe, obviously, Travis Hunter's going to make the team, so I'll count him as one here. Jareen Jones is in, of course. I believe Rayon Lane is in because of special teams right now. I think he's one of the better special teams player. That's kind of his superpower as well. I think Antonio Johnson has made this team. So that's 5, right? Caleb Ransall, yep. Don't know if he's going to be active or not. We'll have to see. Eric Murray, yep. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's assume they keep 10. Andrew Wingard, obviously, is the other one. He had a safety the other day. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky for me. Is it Christian Braswell, who you've seen out there a lot, and you've seen a lot of Braswell over the last couple of years flashing in practice and getting a lot of – he's one of the dudes that when you watch him, technically, he just does so much right. Monteric Brown was headed in that direction. Looked like he was going to compete for a starting spot, but then got banged up, and we haven't seen a whole bunch of him through camp. And then Jabbar Muhammad is another one, and Daniel Thomas. So all of those dudes that I just mentioned, and I did not mention Darnell Savage. So if they keep 10, I'm not cutting Darnell Savage. I'm going to put him on, even though I think it might come down to experience for him. And I think he's also penciled in as a little bit of a starter, but we'll have to see. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are the 10. So depending on the health of Monteric Brown, depending on the health of some of these other players and where they are when it comes to the initial 53, I think Jabbar Muhammad probably has earned at least at least a practice squad spot, but he's going to obviously, if people don't come out healthy, he'll have another look there. I mentioned Daniel Thomas because he's played special team. You have to wonder if Rayon Lane or Caleb Ransaw or a combination of those two guys has done enough that they realize that, hey, man, we might be able to move on from Daniel Thomas at this point, but he's very, very active in practice. Zachariah McPherson has had an injury settlement. He's no longer with the team. But for me, it's Jabbar Muhammad, and it comes down to a couple of other players. One of the keys to all of this, though, is going to be Darnell Savage. I have no clue, and I shouldn't have a clue as to how they actually feel about him, but that's where I'm at with that. With Travis Hunter, you have that extra corner, right? Even if Tyson Campbell is not ready to go early, I don't know if they're holding him out as far as a precaution or whatever. I think they'll be fine because somebody said they need to go to get a DB. I think it was my man Winfield, Andre. And I said, why? I mean, where are you going to go? You're going to find somebody. You just drafted Travis Hunter in the first round. He's going to play both receiver and so what do you use? Do you use more resources to go out and trade for somebody that's going to give you 15, 20 snaps a game? Or are you talking about going out and getting somebody like Stephon Gilmore? If you really wanted to add something to your room, that's what you do. You go get a dude like that doesn't cost you anything, right? You bring him in for a 1-year deal and you put him, into a situation where he's a part of depth. Guys like that, they can play, they can roll out of bed, they can figure out how they need to operate in order to make the team better. But the one thing at this stage of their career, they ain't playing in training camp. But when you go get a good dude like that, you'd expect him to play a whole bunch. So depending on the injury situation with Monteric Brown, maybe he doesn't start the year out on the active roster and they don't have to make a decision right away. That's the thing that would help Jabbar Muhammad. It's the thing that would help them keep Christian Braswell. And then the other thing with Braswell, look, you drafted over him. You've added people. At some point, have you seen enough? I think the system change and the scheme change on the back end warranted them to not only bring guys to camp, but give them a shot to see what they could do. And I do believe that Monteric Brown was one of those people who was actually taking advantage of that. So I think that bodes well to their memory. Depends on his injury situation and who they need for the opening roster. So sometimes your initial 53 isn't the same from the time that you have to do the initial 53 to opening day. And then sometimes the one that's on opening day doesn't necessarily reflect the dudes that you think top to bottom are the best on the roster, but it's about who's the best available and the most available to get you off and running until you get guys back. So a lot of that will come into play with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Practice is going to be very important this week. Those joint practices, I believe the scouting department looks at this just as much as they look at game tape. So dudes are going to be competing from the time they get off the bus in South Florida. And I think that's the way that it should be. All right, we're going to take a quick look at offensive bubble guys. We'll go across the whole offense since we focus so much on linebackers and defense. By the way, Colin Saunders, that's his name, Colin Saunders. He's not just coming here just to be somebody. When the team rolls a dude out there and they're doing the team website and the team social media pages are featuring the dude and they stick that microphone in his face, they have a plan for him. He is going to play, by the way, on that defensive line. The question for me is I saw a drill where he was standing beside people who were starting. Does he start in front of Devon Hamilton? Everybody's talking about Jordan Jefferson. Does he push D-Ham down a little bit? Did they go get him because they were not satisfied with what they had seen from Devon Hamilton? Or is he just insurance just in case Devon Hamilton does not play the way he's supposed to play? We'll see about that this weekend. That'll be one of the things that we'll keep an eye on too. But next we'll go over the offense. We'll discuss that here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored, brought to you by Gametime. Listen, man, Gametime is the absolute truth. If you've ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. I do that all the time here with our baseball team. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. The money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you and chill. That's right. Gametime makes it all possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. One day, I'm going to get up the nerve to go to the Bronx and check out the Red Sox and the Yankees. I am definitely going to do that. So I'll take the guesswork out of buying my tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. It's all guaranteed. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Look, Locked On we have our own newsletter. All right. Go to lockedonpodcast.com, and guess what? You can find that newsletter on there, man. So check that out. It gives off a lot of good information, detailed stuff that you just don't know about. Make sure you tap in to our newsletter. All right, let's look at the offensive line. We can't, obviously the quarterback is what it is. Okay, let's do quarterback. It's Trevor Lawrence. And it's going to be Nick Mullins, whether y'all like it or not. Y'all might as well get used to it. Somebody hit me up and said they need to go after Anthony Richardson. One of the things that the Jaguars are fancied on now is pre-snap answers. Don't know if that's Anthony Richardson's strength. I think Anthony Richardson's strength is his physical ability and his potential. But I don't think he is like the perfect cerebral fit that the Jaguars would want. But we'll go to the offensive line now. So those are the two quarterbacks. I think John Wolford hangs around and probably hits the practice squad. Chuma Edoga, I'm going to go in order here based on, I think they have this numerically listed. So never mind me for not listing starters first. Chuma Edoga, yes. Some talk that he might even start. Could. Jonah Monheim, yes. Played a little, he can play all the way across the line, but he gives you that sort of a little bit of that Patrick McCary versatility, but just in a younger, more unproven body. Speaking of McCary, of course he makes the team. He's the second highest paid lineman on the team. Wyatt Milam, yes, one of the future pieces, and this is the guy. The fact that they picked Monheim on day 3, but Milam on day 2. This is what I've always said. You get 2 offensive linemen every cycle, especially if the draft lines up that way. So the last 4 or 5 years, the depth at offensive line has been really, really good in these drafts, and the Jaguars were not going out and getting guys. Even when they did, like with Javon Foster, it was like the wrong dude. I think Foster's stuck in Never Land. He also, I think, is going to be 25 or 26 years old, a second-year player. I just haven't seen a lot from him, so I'm not going to include him on the list. Obviously, Walker Little, so that's 5. Obviously, Robert Hainsey, the starting center, that's 6. Fred Johnson, yes, the swing tackle, that's 7. Ezra Cleveland, yes, that's number 8. Anton Harrison is number 9. Do they keep 10? Luke Fortin is already out of here. Cole Van Lannon, if they keep a 10th guy, that's going to be him. All right. That'll be what it is. But I think 9 is the operative answer. So you're looking at the 9 dudes I've already named on the offensive line. But you never know with injuries or whatever, and with a good showing, somebody could come back and be a part of the practice squad. Maybe a Dennis Daly type who's been around a little bit. But I think the Jaguars are very, very happy with those first 9. And if they do keep a 10th guy, it'll be somebody with some experience. With the tight ends, this is a good little group, man. We know Brenton Strange is the alpha of that group. We got that. Hunter Long looked good the other day. Johnny Munt, those 2 guys, worked the little kinks out, got all of the, injuries and the strains and the lack of availability. But Quentin Morris, in my opinion, has done some nice things. I think the Jaguars keep 4 tight ends because they don't have a fullback. And they could get a little bit of blocking out of when they go jumbo, and they do a lot of 2 tight end sets also. So I'm going to say that they keep 4 tight ends because they're not keeping a fullback. And all 4 of those guys that I just mentioned will be there. Let's do the wide receivers real quick. Wide receivers, obviously, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter. He is counting twice, so I'm not going to count him. If I count him on DBs, I'm not going to count that wide receiver. But mentally, you can. So that means, do they keep 4 more or do they keep 5 more? So let's go Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, as we know, Parker Washington. There's 3. My main man, Joshua Cephas, who I've been on all training camp, is number 4. And then we get down to Austin Trammell or Trenton Irwin. In my opinion, those 2 dudes are battling for the last spot. Eli Panko was in that. I don't think he's in that anymore. I think he is a practice squad player. Dorian Singer is probably a practice squad player. Those are 2 rookies. So I'm going to go Austin Trammell or Trenton Irwin. Man, that's a tough one because Trammell gives you a little bit something too as a backup punt returner. And he does play that slot. Trenton Irwin is a bigger kid at 6'2", 205. Woo, that's hard, man. So I'm going to say they keep a 5th guy along with Travis Hunter, and it'll be 6 together. I'm going to go with Trenton Irwin. Trenton Irwin. That's where I'm going. I'm going to say Trenton Irwin is the 5th guy. So there you go. Running back, this is interesting because I like all 5 of these guys. I think Jaquindon Jackson is the odd man out. But that big rookie from Arkansas gives you a different look at running back that you don't have. And this is the thought that everyone had. This is why people were saying, when people were talking about them possibly trading Travis Etienne, which I don't think they're going to do. And then you saw them roll Tank Bigsby out there first in preseason game number 2. And everybody's like, what's going on? But then Etienne comes in and you see it. He looks good. I do think Tank starts. That's just my opinion. I think Tank starts, gives you a little power, gives you a lot of stuff, maybe a little bit better at pass protection. Also, Travis Etienne is there. Bashaw Tootin is there. LaQuinton Allen Jr. is definitely there. Those are the 4 running backs. I think they'll try to hire Jaquindon Jackson on the practice squad to see what happens. All right, that's my early spill on the bubble. I'm really keeping an eye on linebacker and defensive back. It's going to be an opportunity for a whole bunch of backups and a whole bunch of guys that are looking to put out good tape to show the Jaguars what they can do. But I warn you, it starts before that game. They need to take advantage of these head-to-head matchup and reps when they're going against the Miami Dolphins, because I think James Gladstone and Tony Baselli are going to be watching with a watchful eye to see if they can get it done. Talk about getting it done, man. I know all y'all are ready for your fantasy football seasons to get going. I do both of mine this weekend, and I'm ready to go because I have watched Locked On Fantasy Football, the podcast with hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. I listen every day, man. I'm telling you, you can prep yourself for the fantasy draft. You never know how it goes, but if you listen to them, you'll have everything that you need in case you get some surprises, and hopefully you'll win your league this season. Find the Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I am glad you guys hung around with me for a little bit over 28 minutes today. We'll talk about the practices. I'll look at some of my favorite people that talk about what goes on in Miami starting tomorrow. Also pay attention to the health of guys as this game progresses to see where they are. Listen to the coaches as they tell you. Sometimes they'll tell you without telling you, but you can actually hear whether people will be available for early in the year, and that'll determine how they have to go about finding out whether they're going to get help from these people. And then now with the way cuts are, they're also going to be some peeking around the league to see if they can poach people off of other people's practice squads or guys that are getting released, and maybe even make a trade like the one that they trade to get a rotational defensive tackle for a guy like Luke Fortner, who they probably weren't going to keep anyway. Big time of year, man. A lot going on in the next week, and we'll have it right here for you on Locked On Jaguars. You guys take care. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.